pickleball, which is a paddle sport. If you've had an opportunity to be around Jason Grigg in any setting, you'll notice his positivity from a coaching standpoint, his positive energy that's contagious and gets people playing sports. I first met him when he was the director of racket sports?
I think
at ACAC?
Yeah, it was, correct. Yep.
Director of racket sports at ACAC, and he just ran a fantastic show. Now he's the teaching pro at Greencroft.
So they gave me an official title, which is the director of racket sports as well for that there. So they actually have, they're dedicated everything to pickleball. So pickleball is kind of what they're looking at doing. So they had 3 outdoor tennis courts and they were trying to figure out what they were going to do, and now they're putting in 8 permanent pickleball courts. And they also have a paddle court too. So they do have some paddle over there as well.
Fantastic. So when we start this program, guys, the mics are hot, but when we start this program, you're going to get a feel for Jason and why so many people in this community love him, enjoy taking classes and lessons from him, and I have a feeling gravitate to what he's doing at Greencroft. Give the show a like and a share anywhere you are watching, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, TikTok, Snapchat. We are live across the board with Judah Wickhauer as the director of this ship. And when meetings run long, for me, Judah is that stable force that really makes the show fantastic. So, Judah, we are in your hands, and we will follow your lead here. Good Thursday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love Seville show. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live in Charlottesville, across the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love Seville network. Ting Fiber Internet, the crazy fast internet behind the I Love Seville network, and many fantastic partners make the program and the network possible. Folks like Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine. Who's got your back? Dr. Wagner and his team at Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine, changing people's lives. Of course, David and his team at Skooma Boutique Dispensary, fantastic partner of the show, right next to Rapture on the downtown mall, Skooma Boutique Dispensary. Today's show excites the hell out of me, and why it does is we have a gentleman who was a visionary, who undoubtedly saw something happening before everyone else did, and that is the booming popularity of pickleball. While we were playing tennis, while we were playing squash, while we were immersed like me in racquetball, there's a paddle sport that is tennis meets ping pong or table tennis, and it just started exploding on the scene. And the name of that sport is pickleball. It started with an older demographic of players, and very quickly that older demographic started spreading the word. Now, millennials and younger are gravitating to the sport in droves. And as many times as you will see maybe your parents, your grandparents playing, you'll see teenagers, 20-somethings, and young professionals playing as well. Cannot wait for you guys to spend 15 or 20 minutes with a guy who is A-plus people. Judah Wickhauer, let's go with the studio camera first, and let's welcome the quite dapper this afternoon, Jason Grigg. Sans hat, a button-down polo.
I know, right? This is not me, right? Normally it's like a coach in a hat. It's like, I don't know, right? It's totally different.
We changed clothes.
I know. So Jerry, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. Absolutely. This is super exciting. I've been on a couple other ones, right?
Yes.
And everything was Zoom, and today was in person, so I figured I was, dress up for the occasion. Why not?
He looks good. Kevin Mulligan giving you some props. Welcome to the program. If you want to give this guy some props, just put the comments, the props, the questions in the feed, and we will relay it live on air. All right, Jason Grigg, the show is yours. Introduce yourself to the few in the community who do not know you.
Well, that was the big question for me. We were talking about being out of Greencroft, and we're going to have an open house this weekend, and it's going to be amazing if there's nobody in that facility that day that I do not know, because I do know pretty much everyone in this community. I've been here a long time. So my name is Jason Grigg, and I've worked at multiple different racket clubs here in town. I've worked at Wintergreen, I worked at the Boar's Hat, I've worked at ACAC for several years. Now, and then I started my own coaching business about a year and a half ago, and then I went out on my own, and it's been geared towards pickleball and 100% pickleball, and I'm super excited about being able to do that. So Greencroft now is is the club that's kind of like has the same values and kind of the goals that I see and envision myself like down the road of being able to just jump on and do 100% pickle, going forward. So I'm super excited to be involved with them, and I can't wait for their program to grow.
Johnny Ornalis, the owner of Mariachi, El Mariachi in Guadalajara, giving you some props. Nicholas Erpy says, we are getting married at Greencroft Club next year. When I saw the pickleball courts, I thought of Senor Jerry. Thank you for watching, Nicholas Erpy. You're getting some love as well from Wendy Baldwin on the Greencroft page. Richmond, Virginia, Short Pump, welcome to the program. A lot of your friends at ACAC watching the program. Wintergreen, hello. John Van Peppen, hello, and welcome to the show. All right, so let's do this. You and I, especially you, although I'm turned into an addict, we are immersed in this sport.
So let me just start with this question, Jerry. This
sure.
is just one thing. I love asking this question, and it's something that I ask everyone. It's like, so what is it, we all know, right? You and I are addicted to this game and this sport, pickleball. And, what is it for you, like the number one thing? I know for a lot of people, it's there's usually one thing and specifically, but what is it for you that makes pickleball so addictive? Do you have
question.
one thing?
So I actually think about this often. So I love to compete.
Yes.
I love chasing the juice.
Yes.
I know you love to compete as well.
Yep.
The beautiful thing about pickleball is it's easy to pick up. You don't have to be an incredible athlete to play this sport. And then if you dedicate some time to this, you improve quickly.
Yep.
And as you improve in anything in life, whether it's your relationship, whether it's business, a sport, it becomes more of a passion because the effort you're putting into it, you see the ROI, the return on investment.
Correct.
I also love the social aspect of it.
Yep.
I also love the fact that pickleball is probably the sport that I'm going to probably be playing in my life long term.
Yep.
It's not super physical on the body, although shot making is there. The competitive juice is there.
Yep.
That lateral quickness that I have can be utilized in this sport. I mean, how about you? What is it that you love?
That's a good question. I think it varies a little bit from, I don't know, even as I get better and better. But I think one of the big things is that you can expose this sport to anybody, right? So you don't need to necessarily, like you were saying, you don't necessarily have to have a whole bunch of skills in order to have success, right? So you can have a group of people and you can say, okay, we're going to play pickleball, and you can see instant success right away, and they can have so much fun doing it, and they can just improve. So as a coach, right, for me, being able to kind of see that immediate improvement, I love being able to do that. Tennis was also a big part of that, but it wasn't as easy, right? You would see some immediate gratification, but at pickleball, it's just exponential, right? How fast the people they improve and how much better they get right from the get-go.
Well said. So let me ask you this question. For the few that don't know the sport, folks, this is the fastest growing sport in America. What exactly or how would you describe pickleball to somebody?
So for me, I would describe it a little bit more because I played a lot of table tennis, and the first time I actually played pickleball, I thought it was like a bigger version of table tennis, right? And I think it's a little bit different for each person, but I would describe it as a sport that it's played with a paddle, right? That you play with a plastic ball, and you allow yourself to play on a little bit smaller court than like a tennis court, or a bigger court than like a table tennis, like you would say. And I think it's one of those where it's more about you just have to get them out there, and once you get a paddle in someone's hand, they're immediately hooked right away.
I concur. How about put in perspective the booming nature of what's happening here?
Yeah. So, if the listeners, the viewers don't know, pickleball definitely is the number one growing sport for sure. And the demographics were showing for the longest time, like you said, it was everywhere. Most of the people were over 40, maybe 50 years old. It was looking at that piece of it. They were looking for activity, and they were trying to be social, and pickle really fit that niche. And now if you're looking at all the numbers, like UVA is getting involved, they have a club team, right? It's the demographic is definitely skewing now, definitely towards, high school, college, right? 20-year-old 20-year-olds, millennials, and they're all getting in and because they just love the sport, and it's an addiction.
And it's social.
And it's super social. Yeah, you can go out and have a cocktail, have a beer, right, and run around, and the games are so fast. Right, so the games are quick. That's another thing that I really like about it. So you can get out there and you can hit a few balls and you can have fun and you really feel like, okay, I'm really intensely involved, but you know the game's going to be done in 5 minutes, and then you social and you rotate around. It's great.
Well said. Okay, we'll get to comments, guys. Comments coming in on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. I'm getting pinged on Spotify and iTunes. If you want to give this man some props, please put it in the feed. Katie Kirby, hello, welcome to the program. Kelly Johnston, hello, and welcome to the program. Saw you yesterday, Kelly Johnston. Al Sineski, giving you some props right now. Al says Jason is a fabulous ambassador of the sport of pickleball. Dude, you are. So I've played with you a handful of times. You are very much able to assess a lot of things immediately. Is the person I'm playing alongside or the people I'm playing across the net, are they alpha competitors, and do they want a game that's going to be, competitive?
Yeah.
Do they want to bring it?
Yeah.
Or are they new to the sport?
Right.
And then you adjust what you're doing based on who you're playing alongside and who you're playing against. When you're playing against someone like, for instance, me, who loves to alpha compete here,
Yep.
you bring that alpha competitiveness, but you do it in a way that's positive and contagious, and want people like me want to keep playing against you or with you.
Yes, for
so
sure.
you're like sports psychologist, therapist, coach, instructor, all the above.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that for me is really just my personality, right? So that's my personality niche, is that I kind of fit that to the T, and that's one of the reasons that I went and kind of started my own coaching business for pickleball, because I feel it's a huge niche that's just not being met right now. And I went to a tennis conference like two weeks ago in Vegas, and the number one topic that they were all talking about was pickleball. It's like, okay, how do we monetize it? How do we get it to go? Right? And I think the big part of it is it comes from coaching, right? And what you do is you actually show people why they need to be, or what how they can improve with the coaching piece of it. I think that really, really helps. And I think that's one of the big things that we're going to start seeing all over the place. Is we're going to see people like me that have a lot of coaching experience coming into pickleball and being able to kind of grow programs. And that's one of the greatest things that I think about Greencroft is it's I can start with that program from the ground up and grow it from there, and we'll just see how it goes. We get 300, 400 members that come out there. They all want to do this, and we get buy-in from the membership and what they want to do and where they want to see this program go, and it's like we're going to create that, and I think that's an awesome thing to do.
Johnny Ornalis says, I'm going to have to find some time to try pickleball and play against Jason Grigg. I highly recommend this. I want to do, and we're going to highlight Greencroft Club. Mr. Van Peppen, thank you for sharing the show. We appreciate that. We'll get to these comments on LinkedIn, Instagram, and iTunes and Apple Podcasts here in a matter of moments. Walk us through the Flipbook of launching a business. So you go through, in a lot of ways, one of the pinnacle professions working for ACAC.
Yep.
It's the director of racket sports.
Right.
And you're like, peace, I'm out.
Yep.
Leaving on good terms here, but I
Yep.
want to start my own business. Was that a difficult choice?
Yes, of course it's a difficult choice, right? I mean, I think for anyone, that's got a full-time job, right, for you to then go out and decide that you're going to do something on your own, that's a huge, right? It's a massive choice. So there's a lot of discussion with my wife, and we talked about it a lot. It's about, where do we want to see ourselves, down the road? And I really felt like it was time for me to step aside from where I was there. So it was a huge choice for me to make that decision. But, after talking to some of my colleagues about it, and I started looking at it, and it was like, okay, now I just not limit myself to ACAC, for example. Now I can open myself up to the entire community and then beyond. So it worked out really, really well.
Laura is saying this: Jason has a calm demeanor that works well with folks that are new to the sport. He is a fantastic coach instructor. I've seen and played against him many times at Piedmont and Penn Park. Well, thank you for watching the program right there. If you want kind words to relay to Jason, please put them in the feed. Let's talk Greencroft. Greencroft Club has got a grand opening on Saturday. Judah, if you can go to the Greencroft Club Facebook page and check out their events. They have a fantastic rendering of what the 8 pickleball courts look like with the platform, tennis court next to it. If we could get that on screen, please, Judah Wickhauer. All right, the show's yours, Jason Grigg. What's going down?
So they are finishing up everything today, right? So they're painting the lines on the courts today, right? If you actually go out there and check out the courts today at Greencroft, you're going to see that facility looks amazing. So when you guys show up on Saturday, so we're going to have an open house on Saturday from 11 to 3, come out, right? And it's open to everyone from the community to come out and try the courts out and just kind of see what we're going to offer over there and kind of check out the facility itself. And it's one of those things that you and I know also that, you know, as you start playing on dedicated courts, right, you don't want to go back to setting up your courts and lugging your courts around and lugging your net around and lugging all your equipment around. And it's going to be a huge, huge advantage to be able to have this facility with dedicated courts because it's just going to become the normal, right? And that piece of it out there, I think, is going to be so amazing. I love that whole idea of them having 8 permanent, you know, dedicated pickleball courts. And I think it's just going to become the normal for everybody as it continues to grow.
Kathy Yersick, welcome to the broadcast. She's giving Jason Grigg some props right now. How would you, this is an interesting question for Brian, who's watching in Short Pump. Brian, are you a member of ACAC Short Pump? I recognize the name. Give me a thumbs up or put a comment in if you are there. How would you characterize, and this is Brian's question, where pickleball is in its stage of development, maybe toward, in comparison to another sport in its stage of development?
So I would tell you that, you know, that pickleball is still very, very early in its development. And that's also kind of the cool thing. So I would say it's in its terrible twos is where I would put it, you know, and you can compare it to as many sports as you want. It's only been around for X number of years. It's still new, right? It's not quite an Olympic sport yet, but it's growing leaps and bounds. And what I would say is, you know, that's really the cool thing about it is because it's constantly changing and it's evolving. So again, as a coach, right, to be up on that upside of being able to be involved with some top level players like Megan Charity and some of the pros that live here in town, you know, for me to be able to kind of help them develop as they grow, I mean, that's such a cool thing because everything is constantly changing. It's never the same. It's not stagnant. So I think that's an awesome thing.
Where do you think it's going to go?
That's a good question.
Replace tennis?
I don't know if it's going to go that far.
Okay.
Right? We'll see. But I think it could potentially, right? I mean, it's going to definitely carve out a massive niche in the racket industry. You know, 5 years from now, I mean, the numbers are still going to grow and continue to grow. As there's more, you know, permanent pickleball courts, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what's going to happen.
Offer some insight into the value proposition of permanent courts versus temporary courts. You've touched on this already. First of all, the temporary net is not light.
No, it's not. It's very heavy and it's cumbersome to set up, correct?
Right. It's cumbersome to set up.
Yeah.
Oftentimes playing with temporary nets, lines for pickleball that were kind of integrated into tennis courts that are darker and hard to see out of bounds.
Correct, yeah.
Show's yours on that.
So, I mean, this is my feeling. I think for a lot of, again, I was at a tennis conference like 2 weeks ago, and this is what a lot of the clubs are trying to figure out. Whereas they know that permanent, you know, pickleball is out there. It's like, okay, I need to figure out how do I create a program. And I would say that if you don't have anything available and all you have is tennis courts, right, then you have to use what you have available. So setting those up and maybe taping some of the lines or, you know, having some of those dedicated, you know, or, you know, courts that or nets that aren't permanent that you can set up and use. But as you improve your program and you get new members, I think the idea of putting in dedicated courts is not out of the question at all because it's what's going to become the normal. And the thing that I always say is that, can you imagine if you're a tennis player, right, and you had to lug your net around, right? I mean, that would never happen, right? So the same thing is going to happen with pickleball too. It's going to get to the point where the pickleball players are going to be coming into Charlottesville and be like, okay, where are the dedicated courts? And that's where I'm going to go play. I'm not going to go play in the tennis court.
Let's talk Greencroft Club. 8 courts. J-Dubs, give us a thumbs up when you have that image, if you could. 8 courts, brand new, state of the art, for lack of a better phrase. What happened there? How did we get to this point?
Well, I mean, I think they were at a point at the club, right, where they were trying to grow and they were trying to figure out ways to, you know, try to expand the club itself. And they had 3 permanent pickleball or 3 tennis courts that were there that haven't been resurfaced in a long time. And they were in pretty bad shape. And they were just like, okay, where, you know, what do we do? Do we invest some money back into resurfacing this and doing this in tennis? You know, and then they brought a couple of people in to talk to their board about it. And, you know, we were really kind of trying to push them in the way of going towards pickleball because that's one of the biggest growing sports, right? And that's what we were trying to tell them. But they couldn't really necessarily maybe look at it initially like, okay, well, how do we monetize that? What do we do? Is it going to grow our membership? And then I still don't think they know how big it's going to be, right? Because you and I can have this conversation, and they haven't had the courts built out there yet. So, come Saturday, the number of players that are going to be out there is just going to be, it's going to be great. I can't wait to see it.
8 courts, that is the largest amount of courts. So that's on screen now. Check for those that are viewing the show. Many listen to the show on iTunes or Apple Podcasts in their car. Look at the screen now. This is a rendering of Greencroft Club. There's 8 courts. There you see the pool and the platform tennis court next to it. 8 courts is a lot of ways the epicenter.
It is. It's going to be the biggest one here in town. I know that they put in Darden. They put in 6 courts over there. And I know that Boar's Head put in 6 courts over there too. Mm-hmm. The one thing that Greencroft's going to have, right, they're going to have more courts, and they're going to have the posts put in the ground. So they're going to have permanent nets in the ground, which is going to be different than both of those locations. And again, that's going to become the normal as there becomes more and more dedicated courts.
So Boar's Head's got the permanent nets now.
So they have the nets, but it's the same ones that are over at Darden Tao.
Okay.
Which is the ones that, technically they're permanent, but they're not the posts in the ground.
Oh, got it. Got it. That is true. He's right on that. What do you see this if how's Greencroft going to monetize this? What's the plan for membership, and what could be potentially stage 2?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think there's a lot of stages that we can try to go from here. But I think stage 1 for the first part is being able to do the open house on Saturday, seeing what the membership influx is going to be, which I think it's going to be, again, pretty big, especially, again, with having me involved and being able to grow the programming and have the programming piece be a big part of that. But I think if we get a big influx of numbers and we feel like, okay, those 8 pickleball courts aren't satisfying the needs of the membership that we have, right? We've got room to put in 8 more maybe in the springtime, right? Or in the summer of next year. So the turnaround for putting in 8 more courts is only a couple months. So they have the land,
that's amazing.
They're dedicated, right? So that piece of it, again, that's what drew me to them, for sure.
So in a lot of ways, what they are doing is kind of like the entrepreneurial adventure that you pursued with your coaching business.
Correct. Yes.
Robert Gregg, kin to you, family?
Yep.
Who's Robert?
He's my brother. Or my cousin, sorry.
He's your cousin, and he's giving you some props.
Nice.
Where's Robert watching?
Probably in Michigan.
Okay. Welcome, Robert from Michigan. Judy Weiler.
Yep. She's my aunt.
Your aunt is giving you some props right now. Grayson is watching in Crozet. He says, how can we find out more about joining and membership and events that are going to be planned for the public? That's a good question.
That is a good question. So we have an online reservation system that we're still building out a little bit that's going to be available for the memberships that we have currently that we're going to start on this weekend. And then I think the best thing that they can do is either look at the Greencroft Facebook page, would be one, because the events will be in there, or number 2 would be to go to the Greencroft website as well. And we'll have links of everything in there going forward.
So 8 courts, Jason Gregg there. Are you going to be holding some of your instructional seminars for groups, or is it one-on-one solely?
That's a good question too. So we're actually going to create a lot of that. So I think we're going to try to do some one-on-ones, right, with the private lessons, and then we'll offer semi-privates, and maybe 3-in-1s also work really well for private type lessons, and then we're going to also have groups. So I think the goal would be with their programming would be to try to see if we can make it more level-based, right? So that's really the goal, is try to figure out a way to grow the groups of each level and try to set it different so that we can do that together, like from each group. So we'll do some clinics, from the 3.0, 3.5 level, and then also the 4.0, 4.5, and then maybe even some elite groups as well. So we'll do more of that drilling and have some more of that level-based programming.
So put the ranking system in perspective.
Yeah, so the pickleball ranking system, I think, is one of those things where
it's challenging because it's so new.
It's very challenging, and that's where the terrible 2 part of pickleball comes into play, where it's got some room to work. So, and I think this is one of the big things, especially here in Charlottesville. It's just sheer numbers, right? So if we have 500 pickleball players in Charlottesville and you go down to Richmond, right, and you're a level here in Charlottesville and you go down and you start playing against the 5,000 people that are now in Richmond,
are those
at the same level? No, but I'm just saying that there's 500 Charlottesville pickleball players, right? So you say, okay, I'm a 4.0 in Charlottesville, and then I go down to Richmond and now I'm playing a 4.0 from Richmond, and there's 5,000 of them down there, right? The level is going to be really skewed. So we run into the same thing with tennis. I think that's going to even itself out with pickle. And I think the thing with pickle is the more players we get playing, right? So now we take the 500 and now we have, maybe 2,000 pickleball players in Charlottesville. And that just helps graduate that level a little bit better.
Because he's basically saying as you get more players, there's more parity, there's more depth and competition.
Correct.
And if there's more depth and competition, people are going to get better because they have more options to play.
Correct.
One of the challenges that I'm seeing here as you progress to a certain level, there's frankly now, I would say 15 to 25 in the Charlottesville, Central Virginia area that are probably in that 4, 5+ range. You think that's fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, but I think that's going to change too, right? Again, I think as we continue to grow and as we get, that demographic of getting more 20-year-olds in, right? So you start getting some of the college kids that, maybe even players that have played on UVA, right? Or play club tennis, and now all of a sudden they start to play pickleball, and it's like, woof, they immediately are already at a 4.0 level. So once they get some of the skill, right, they just elevate that level as it goes forward.
I was having this conversation literally this morning with Caleb and Leah Dowies, and we were talking about, I've been playing recently with some of the squash guys from UVA who've just been messing around playing pickleball, the guys and gals.
Yep.
And dude, these people are nasty.
Yeah.
They just have racket skills.
They totally already do, right?
Yeah.
And it translates, and it's different, right? So and that's one of the things where it's like, so you have the skills from either squash, it's different than a good tennis player, right? So the pieces that they're going to bring to pickleball, right, is just going to, and that's how it elevates, right? The whole game elevates, and it changes depending on, again, who you're playing against or what you're doing.
That is 100% true. So they were hitting shots and having spin on the ball that I hadn't seen before, and they're like, oh, that's common from squash. I've heard from my background with racquetball that I was hitting some shots that folks hadn't seen that were common in racquetball, and same with tennis. So you're basically saying is all these different, and that's a really good point. So all these different players who may not have started initially with this sport because it's so new, as they bring elements of their primary racket or paddle sport to this brand new sport, then those new elements are going to make everyone better because it's going to be introducing new shots that people have never seen before.
That's correct. That's exactly right. And it's just going to elevate the game, and that's a big part of just pickleball in general, right? It's like it's so new that it, even at the top level they keep pushing the boundaries, and we'll see like they're talking about changing some rules and doing some different things.
Like what?
Well, I mean, they did some things last year where they allowed people to have a drop serve and to spin the ball, right? So that they're trying to figure out if they want to do that. They're also, the big topic of discussion is rally scoring. So they're talking about having rally scoring being a regular piece in professional pickleball, which I think that would really change the game.
Big
right?
time.
I mean,
tell folks what rally scoring means.
So for most people, again,
it's volleyball.
Yes. So you score a point every time you win a point. Generally in pickleball, you only score points when you are serving. Right, so they did make that change, I think, even at professional volleyball at one point because they were trying to make it more, optimal for television, right? So going forward, and I think that's what they're looking at is like if they want to think about curving in a way that it's going to make it better for ESPN to pick up more professional pickleball.
Like a 30-minute block.
Yes, right, and try to keep it going to where it would go. So some games, if you don't know, like with pickleball, can take a long time, right? Because you're only scoring points, and it's designed to actually be very difficult to win points in pickle because you're only winning points when you're serving. So the rally scoring would be that every time you win a point, whether you're receiving or serving, you would score a point, and you play games to 11. So the games could be very fast.
Do you like the rally scoring idea? I'm not crazy about that.
I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I haven't done it enough really to think one way or the other. But I think for most people that are really like love pickleball and love that element of the, where it is right now, I think it would be a big change.
We got some diehards watching the program. So let's get to some of the comments from the diehards watching the show. First, we'll acknowledge some of the folks that are giving you props. Caleb Jordan Sakel, watching the program and giving you some props on the show. So this question is coming in from Short Pump. So you have some influence over at ACAC Short Pump here. Alexa Beal, also welcome to the program. Ask Jason what he thinks of some of the pros that are now doing these spin serves. It seems to be a new integration to the sport that is not great because the serve shouldn't have such a great influence on the game as it's having with some of the pros spinning the ball.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. But I think there's one of these things where if they're going to allow it at that professional level, right, I think that's how the game changes, right? And it grows as we go. And I don't know if they're going to allow that for next year. I think it was kind of an experiment this year to see how that was going to work. But I would say that the serve, and for most of us that play pickleball, a lot of us all play doubles. But if you're going to play at that higher level and you're going to play singles, that serve is so important, and it requires, there's a piece that you need to take more risk when you're serving, when you're playing singles. So having that ability to have more spin on the ball and to do different things, I think it just makes that singles play a little bit more effective.
Max Moore, welcome to the broadcast. So, do you like the spin serve?
I like the spin serve, yeah.
Yeah?
I like the creativity of it, and I think I also like where it takes the game, right? It changes things, right? It's something different. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I think it's good. I think overall, yeah.
So, put in perspective the spin serve and help me with this. You can utilize your other hand, in particular the fingers on the hand that's holding the ball.
Correct.
To spin it off your fingers, and then the pros are utilizing that spin that's being created pre-serve and then using their paddle to hit the ball while it's spinning. So once the paddle hits the ball while it's spinning and it's going to the return of server, it's bouncing super funky. Is that?
Yeah. So, and I think there's a couple pros that have been doing that for a long time. But yes, I think the gist is that they're trying to spin the ball a certain direction. And generally I think some of them go right and left. So they change the variable up a little bit. But most of them, I think, just go forward, and they get the ball spinning forward, and then they accelerate that spin with their paddle. So it just makes the serve, allows them to hit the ball harder, and it allows the spin then to kind of push more through the court and the ball to stay lower.
So a question's coming in from Wintergreen Resort from Spencer and said, bring up the fact that pickleball can be played with both men and women and the advantage a man may have in some other sports due to physicalities do not necessarily convey in pickleball.
That's true. So, and I think that's one of the big things just with pickleball in general. It's a big neutralizer, right? The sport itself is a big neutralizer. So you can allow, you can have husband and wife and kids, the whole family. You can go out and you can play, right? And you can all have fun because the game neutralizes all that skill.
I got a picture coming in from John Van Pempet literally as we speak here, Judah. So thank you for sending me this, John. I'm going to forward you this photo. This is live programming at its finest to your Facebook Messenger inbox. And if you can get that on screen, that would be fantastic. That is in your Facebook Messenger inbox. Thank you, Judah Wickhauer. So throw this to you. How can the Pro Tour continue to grow from where it's at now? I'm watching most of the matches on Facebook. I do get I stream TV just like everybody else, and it's starting to kind of infiltrate streaming networks.
Yeah, and I would tell you, Jerry, that this is one of the things when I started trying to find pro pickleball, just matches in general, right, and watch pro events. It's not easy to find. Right? It's not okay, I can simply do this. You actually have to subscribe to, the PPA or, the other, so you have to really search and you have to find different things, and it's not easy. So I think it's a goal that I think that they need to make simpler. And I think it's a combination of maybe signing some contracts with ESPN and some of the other bigger companies, right? NBC, of having a more on kind of prime time, if you will. So I think that piece of it, of having more primetime pro pickleball, I think is where it's going to go eventually. And I think when they do that, I think it's going to just keep pushing the sport going forward.
Let's give some love to arguably the best player in the area, in Meg Charity. So Meg Charity, someone you know well.
Yep.
You've trained with her. Meg Charity is a tennis player. She played tennis in college. She calls Charlottesville her home. She is, for lack of a better phrase, a badass on the pickleball courts. She is a touring professional.
Yep.
She, in fact, is going to be playing in a tournament in Hilton Head with a new friend of mine and Rosie Johansson.
Yep.
Rosie Johansson is a doubles pickleball player and a singles pickleball player. She played doubles at UVA and was an All-American, I think multi-time All-American at the University of Virginia. First, Meg Charity. What can you say about her?
So I would tell you that they actually played that tournament last weekend, Jerry.
Oh, they did?
So, yeah, right.
Okay.
They did, yep. So, and that was a big one, I think, for Rosie to kind of step into because she's never played a professional event. And that event, when you're playing all the top 10 players were all playing in it. It was a big step, I think, for them to do together. So I think it was an awesome thing. And they won, I think, one round in the main draw, and then they got into the back draw. But it's an eye opener to play at that level, right? It's just totally different. It's one thing for Rosie and Meg to play against you and I, for example, and then all of a sudden have to go play against Simone and it's a totally different level. So, and I could say that the greatest thing about Meg Charity for me is that she's always willing to put in the time. She's an ambassador. She's an ambassador, right? That's right. She grew up in South Africa, right? She's been in the States for some time now, but she got to be an ambassador from the the International Pickleball Association, I think is what it's called. But yeah, she's an ambassador for South Africa, which I think is super awesome. And I think that's getting a little off topic, but I think the piece with the growth of pickleball to get it to be an Olympic sport is it's massive in the States and it's not so big in all the other countries. So I think the more ambassadors we can have in place and the more we can grow pickleball around the world, the more likely it's going to become an Olympic sport.
Hello, Katie Kirby. Welcome to the broadcast. So is pickleball most popular here in the U.S.?
It is, yes.
What do you attribute that to?
I think that's where a lot of it just started, right? I think most of the players, and I would tell you that, I've been on a lot of conversations with other people about, how they got it started in different countries. In what it is they would come to the States and they would pick up and learn the game from here, and then would take it over to the UK, for example. So there's a lot of people that have been trying to get the sport growing worldwide, and I think that's an awesome thing. But I think it's just one of those things where it's been popular here in the Virginia, well, I should say in the States for quite some time.
So Jason Grigg is on fire right now, guys, on the show. We'll get to your comments, your props, your praise here for Coach Jason Grigg. Put him in the feed. Judah Wickauer, our director, if you could rotate the rendering photo from Greencroft Club on screen first, and then the picture of what the courts look like currently, that would be fantastic. Let's get those on screen.
Do they have lines on?
Let's see, I got them right here. So we're doing this on the fly.
Yeah, let me see. I want to see.
John Van Peppen, they have the center court line.
Nice.
Not the kitchen lines yet, but the center court line is on there right now. They look good, John. They look really good, dude. I'm excited to see them on Saturday as well. All right, so comments coming in here. This is coming in from Jonathan. Guys, who's your favorite pickleball player and why? Good question. You want to go first?
Well, I would say, from my standpoint, it's got to be Meg Charity. Right? Meg Charity is right up there. She's got to be for sure.
Smart man. Smart man. How about favorite male pickleball pro?
Well, this is a good one. I get this a lot, and, everyone could say Ben Johns, right? But I think I like his brother, right? I think Colin is amazing. Yeah. He's an amazing athlete, and he's been around the sport for some time, and I think it's great.
So my favorite is Tyson Mcguffin. Mm-hmm. I like Tyson Mcguffin because he doesn't have a lot of the physical advantages of some of these other guys. I mean, he's not super tall.
Yep.
He's not super long.
Right.
The guy is just a beast and a hard worker and a hustler, and he plays with a lot of grit.
Yep.
Meg Charity, I'm going to give you my favorite female pickleball player as well. I think you're awesome, Meg Charity. Rosie, you're my second favorite pickleball pro.
That's
I love
right.
you too, Rosie. How about this? Ben Johns coming into the sport at literally the right time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think he'd been in around the sport for quite some time, but I think he was, right? He'd been playing even at the professional level, even before. So I don't know. I'd have to see what how long he's been playing pro pickleball, but it's probably been almost 6 or 7 years now. So, in the sport at the professional level has come a long ways, and I would say the last 2 years, but it's still got a long ways to go, right? For a lot of those pro players to make a lot of money.
How about the props for the better half here? Launching a business ain't easy.
Nope.
13 and a half years in myself.
Yeah.
You are a year and a half
What's that?
Year and a half into the business? How long?
Year and a half, yes.
Yeah, year and a half. So congratulations.
Thank you.
A year and a half, you passed the 1 year marker.
Yep.
How about props to the family and the better half for the support?
Yeah, I mean, I think
because you're away from them a lot.
I am, right?
Yeah.
That's part of my job, right? And even during the pandemic, it was so hard because the challenge was, it's like, again, when I started and when I was growing this business and being out there and being involved, right? I'm such a social person, right? For me, like to be locked up and be stuck inside, it's like I can be miserable after a little while. It's like, okay, just get out of the house. But I think that was a big part of it for me. It's like I got that social component, right, through all of the people that I was playing pickleball with and coaching and doing that. And, unfortunately, my wife was stuck at home and she's still stuck at home working, which is, it can be tedious. So thank you so much for that. And I know my daughter, Alyssa, she'll be watching at some point, but she's a sweetheart too.
Dan Gooch Gonzalez watching.
Nice.
Dan Gooch Gonzalez. I used to play against Jason in high school, tennis. He's a great guy. Glad to see he's doing well. He's got a little bit of a zinger he wants to throw at you that he's saying he's undefeated against you in tennis.
That's
Why don't
true.
you zing him back? Is that true?
That is true.
That is true.
Yeah.
Where's Dan?
I don't know how many times we've actually played tennis, right? But it was always an epic battle, right? There was, it was one of those things where every time we would play, we'd be the first court to go on and the last court to finish. It would be hours and hours and hours of a battle.
So where did you play tennis in college?
In Fair State University. So it's on the east side. So they have a program called Professional Tennis Management there at the college. And I learned about this actually when I was probably in ninth grade. And I learned about a tennis camp that they were having at Fair State. And I went there for a tennis camp and I learned about this program called Professional Tennis Management. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can actually be a tennis pro the rest of my life. I was like, this is for me. I'm in.
Man, I am jealous. I am so jealous. So here's a good point. And thank you, Kelsey, for keeping us on our P's and Q's. Kelsey said, gentlemen, great interview. You've gone most of this interview without asking about the pandemic's impact on pickleball. I would say it's quite positive, and I echo what she's saying. And we're not marginalizing COVID by any means. COVID is not great. COVID sucks. We'll cut to the chase. But COVID's been great for pickleball.
Well, I think so, and it's been great for tennis too. I mean, I think it's
and golf
and golf, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for sure. I mean, golf is one of those sports that was definitely on the dying end, and I think COVID has rejuvenated for sure golf and tennis and pickle for that matter. So pickleball definitely, I think capitalize on that because people are looking for activity at home in their driveway, and that's something that you can do as a family. Is you can set up a pickleball net and you can go play, and have fun.
What it hasn't been good for, one of my favorite sports is racquetball.
Yeah, and a racquetball and squash too, both, right?
Dude.
Anything that's indoors,
It's in a box.
Yeah, it's not looking good for either one of those sports. And I would say that, in the industry is tough, right? Because like at ACAC, it's like, okay, well, they're constantly looking at, this racquetball court that's taking up X number, X, Y, and Z. And it's like, I could put 17 spin bikes in there, right? And it's a huge member benefit. And that space is, really underutilized. I'll put it that way.
We think about the racquetball players, think about that quite a bit. Jason, dude, a lot of people are saying you're a fabulous ambassador to the sport of pickleball. So let's follow up with this, and then we'll get you out of here in a couple more questions. How can we sign up for classes with Jason Grigg?
So what I would tell you is that to start with, you can do two things. One is you can go to my website, right, which is JG Pickleball. So you can go to JG Pickleball and you can contact me that way if you want to reach out to me that way, or you can email me at jasongrig1@gmail.com, which is another way to actually reach out to me. The other option, right, going forward, starting on Saturdays, I'm going to start having all of my classes, all my pickleball stuff is going to be out at Greencroft. So that's another way that you can reach out to me as well.
So another good question here, and this is from... Is it Wendy Sherling? She says, there are a lot of paddles out there to purchase. I started with an Amazon paddle, and I quickly realized this was not the way to go. Can Jason recommend, and I'll go long here so we get that fantastic smile right there from Judah Wickower and Jason here on camera. Wendy wants to know, can you recommend a paddle and brand for me as I've improved my game?
Yeah, this is a challenging question, I think, for a lot of people. And it's because there's just so much out there for most people, in tennis, there's certain brands out there too, but in pickle, there's thousands of paddles out there. And, for people that don't necessarily know how to navigate that, I think it's a challenge. But I think there are a couple, what I would tell you is if you can get your hands on a demo, right? Getting your hands on a demo paddle is the way to go before you actually spend the money on actually purchasing the paddle, right? Personally, I use Onyx. I like Onyx. It's really well. I think Selkirk is a good company. There's all Paddle Tech. There's tons of great companies that are out there. But what I would tell you is see if you can try to get a demo paddle. And there's people out there where you can get them. I think they do it. Is it Pickleball Channel or Pickleball Savings? I think does it as well. I think there's a couple of websites that allow you to have like a demo program where they can do that. We will have paddles out at Glenmore, right? Glenmore
at Greencroft.
Or Greencroft, sorry. Yeah. So at Greencroft, right, we'll have paddles out there of a couple different paddle companies. So we'll have demos that you can try either on Saturday if you want to come out for the open house, or taking any lessons or any classes out there. We'll definitely have some paddles for you to use.
Catherine D'Souza giving you some props. She says, congratulations. Thank you for watching, Catherine. So Lou at the tennis shop has got paddles that you can demo. I think it's $5 a paddle for a day. And dude, I completely agree with him. Demo like 4 or 5 paddles. They're all different weights.
Yeah, they're different weights, they're different sizes, and even if you don't necessarily know where to start, at least just getting your hands on a couple paddles.
Because they're not cheap.
No, they're not cheap.
Yeah.
And I would tell you that if you're a newbie coming into it, right, you're probably going to invest anywhere from about $55 to $70 price range. And if you've been playing for a year and you want to improve, it's going to be over $100. And Selkirk's going to be as much as $300.
Yeah.
So they're not cheap. So I would definitely tell you to try as many as you can get your hands on before you invest the money.
Why do you like the Selkirk?
I think it's one of those paddles that it allows you to have a lot of power and a lot of control all in one paddle, right? And for me, I think it's something that I like that feel.
So here's a good one from Adam. This is a technical question for you on paddles. The honeycomb paddles versus the one all consistent one, and that's not the right phrase, that Gearbox offers.
Yes. So
it's not one all consistent. What's the better term? What is it?
So
a better description?
It's like
it's like all one piece of, is it graphite?
Yes, graphite. Yeah. So it's graphite. And again, this is personal preference, but I think for me, the honeycomb just gives me a lot better feel. And it just allows me to reset the ball so much better, right? So if you're hitting the ball at me hard, I feel like I can reset and control the ball, where the ones that are all graphite, I just feel like the ball just shoots off my paddle much more. But I think that's part of the personal preference, and that's also where I think you should demo paddles, right? So that you can have some of the honeycomb ones, you can hit a few balls, and like, okay, well, I don't like this one, but maybe I do like the Gearbox, right? And that's got a better feel for what I'm looking for.
So we'll wind down on this, and then we'll get you out of here. And dude, you crushed it. You were an
happy
easy
to be out
interview.
Anytime, dude. Anytime.
I will take you up on that.
Yeah.
Talking pickleball is not work.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not for me. Work. Well, you especially, you made your passion your profession. I'm kind of trying to doing that here as well with this talk show. All right, let's highlight Greencroft Club and the offerings again. The grand opening on Saturday, membership opportunities, the value proposition of these 8 courts all in one area. Judah, if you could rotate those images on screen again for us while Jason is given the who, what, when, where, why.
So just just kind of a reminder about, again, the grand opening this Saturday at Greencroft. So we're going to have 11 to 3 this Saturday. So again, that's open to everybody from the community. Anybody can come out. You don't need to be a member. You just come out and see the facility, try out the courts. Even if you've never even played pickleball, you got a family. It's like, oh, let's just go and try and look at the Greencroft Club and just see what's going on. Bring the family out. We'll have stuff for everyone to do. We're going to have food and drink for everyone out there. And it's just going to be a big, fun social event.
Jason Griggs, the man. He is a great coach. He's a great ambassador and evangelist of the sport. I will be there on Saturday,
Nice.
100%. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, Jerry, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Yes.
Jason Grigg, boys and girls. J-Dubs, why don't we go on the one shot there and then offer Coach Jason Grigg some guidance. We have a couple of other items that we want to get out of the notebook here on the I Love Seaville show. And for those that need something to do this Saturday, guys, Greencroft Club, excellent work. Excellent work.
Thanks,
Our pleasure. So a couple items that I want to get out of the notebook today, guys. Some stuff from UVA, some stuff from basketball. some stuff from Facebook and potential rebranding of Facebook as well. I think one of the first things that I want to get to on today's program, now that this fantastic interview with Jason Grigg is over, I want to talk another event that's been put on my radar that's absolutely fantastic is a Winter Wonder event at the Boar's Head Club. And Winter Wonder is going on November, December, and January. And it's just this gorgeous idea of lighting up much of the grounds at the Boar's Head Resort. See you, Jason. Lighting up much of the grounds at the Boar's Head Resort. It's a combined cinder and grass trail that circles nearly 1/2 mile around Heritage Lake behind the main hotel at Boar's Head Resort. Guests will experience multiple Instagram-worthy moments as thousands of festive lights illuminate the rolling landscape with an easy trail rating. The trail is truly built for all walks of life. We will highlight Winter Wonder with the Boar's Head Resort as we get closer to November and the holidays. It's a fantastic opportunity for families, moms and dads, grandparents, and kids alike. A couple other items out of the notebook, Judah, as you're watching the PTI headlines for us, my friend. Charlottesville City Council is in the middle of meetings, closed-door sessions right now to pick a brand new interim city manager. Remember, Chip Boyles resigned in surprising fashion a couple of weeks ago, and now Charlottesville City Council closed-door sessions this week to find an interim city manager that will help the jurisdiction we call Charlottesville go from today to December 31. Remember, a more permanent city manager, the CEO of the city, will be chosen in January when the new city council positions are filled on November 2nd. Nakia Walker has withdrawn her re-election bid, and Heather Hill has said she will not run again. So there's 2 spots on council that need to be filled. The expectation is Brian Pinkston and Juan Diego Wade will be chosen. These 2 guys will have some more clarity, all of us will, on the 2nd of November when the general election concludes. So here's the nitty-gritty. City Council now has to pick an interim city manager to get Charlottesville City to December 31st. And then in January, when the new permanent council members, when the 5 have a chance to mesh, they will pick a more full-time city manager. We'll follow that closely. Lloyd Snook, a Charlottesville City Councilor, will join us on this show tomorrow, as will Kathy Galvin, a former Charlottesville City Councilor. 2 or 3, actually 5 items left out of the notebook. Very frustrating fashion. UVA band, you know, the band that plays football games at Scott Stadium, University of Virginia football. The band has a section of instruments that have been outlawed. And the section of instruments that are outlawed at home football games are the wind instruments. And the wind instruments have been outlawed because of COVID fears. Now, folks, I'm not one to judge. I'm just a common sense guy that uses the eye test, reasonable judgment, at least most of the time. The eye test, reasonable judgment, common sense, and facts to make decisions. Help me understand this. So the wind instruments are dangerous because of the spread of COVID at football games. However, we can pack Scott Stadium to cheer on a talented Bronco Mendenhall-led UVA football team. We can sit shoulder to shoulder with strangers, and we can scream at the top of our lungs, put our arms around each other's shoulders, and sing the good old song and cheer on for good old UVA. Yet the wind instruments in the band are outlawed. And first, second, third, and fourth years who've worked or prepared all their lives to play in a college band have to sit out and not enjoy their passion. Does that make common sense or pass the eye test for you? It's okay to spend money, buy tickets, buy hot dogs, popcorns, and Pepsis, put your arm around a stranger sitting next to you, as long as UVA gets that dollar. But the wind instrument section cannot play their instruments of choice because of fears of COVID spread. Next topic on the I Love CVille show. Jay Huff has inked a two-way deal with the Los Angeles Lakers. Jay Huff is the fantastic UVA basketball player that is now pursuing professional dreams. A two-way contract for Mr. Jay Huff with Tinseltown, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, and the Los Angeles Lakers. He went undrafted in the 2021 NBA draft. He played for the Washington Wizards in the NBA Summer League. He subsequently signed with the Wizards heading into training camp. He was waived by the Wizards on October 14th. He seemed to be headed to the G League. Instead, the Lakers signed him to a two-way contract, an opportunity to potentially get some NBA playing time. I have some sad news to report. Mamadi Diakite, one of the heroes in the national championship run for Tony Bennett and the Virginia men's basketball team, he unfortunately has been cut by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Mamadi Diakite, the only player in basketball history to win a college championship, a G League championship, and an NBA championship. I'll give you that stat again. Mamadi Diakite, the only player in basketball history to win a college championship, UVA, a G League championship, and an NBA championship with the Milwaukee Bucks. He was cut by the Bucks after they won the title. He signed a contract with Oklahoma City Thunder. Unfortunately, a hip injury has led to Diakite getting cut by the Oklahoma City Thunder, and now we are left wondering if Diakite's future is across the pond in Europe playing overseas hoops. Two other items out of the notebook, three other in fact, one more from college basketball. I don't know if you're following this closely, but college athletes now have the opportunity to profit from their naming rights, their image rights, and their likeness rights. Basically, college athletes can be endorsers for products. Well, let me tell you a crazy story here. An 18-year-old for the Kentucky men's basketball team, an 18-year-old for the Kentucky men's basketball team. This guy has yet to play a basketball game for John Calipari. Not even one. Yes, he's a highly touted recruit. Yes, he's projected to be one and done, one season in Lexington for the Wildcats, and then enter his name in the NBA draft where he's going to likely be a lottery pick. This guy's name is Ty Washington. He signed a deal with a Porsche dealership in Louisville, Kentucky. And this Porsche dealership gave Ty Washington an $80,000 Porsche Cayenne SUV. You got an 18-year-old who has yet to play a college basketball game that was just handed the keys to an 80G, 80K, 80 smackaroos Porsche Cayenne SUV. He's going to be driving around the University of Kentucky on 22-inch rims, bumping some bass, windows down, seat laid back, chilling like a villain in an $80,000 Porsche Cayenne SUV, and it's completely above board and legal and within the rules. Props and kudos to him. All right, two other items out of the notebook. This from Fortune 100 companies. If you're not following closely, PayPal, I own PayPal, one of the positions in my portfolio. It's a fantastic one. PayPal also owns Venmo. PayPal is now close to buying the social media platform Pinterest. Will we see an integration of PayPal and Pinterest? I think so. PayPal and Pinterest, I think, would make an excellent marriage. PayPal has got serious dollars and is revolutionizing how we purchase things online. They are discussing acquiring Pinterest at a potential price of $70 a share, which would value Pinterest at $39 billion. $39 billion. And lastly, I talked earlier this week on how Facebook, the social media giant, will recapture trust from users who are concerned about privacy concerns. Well, the speculation is Facebook, also in my portfolio. I have a position in that company. Facebook is considering a rebranding effort. As early as next week, we may see Facebook rebrand its name. Remember, Facebook owns WhatsApp and Instagram, and is just one of the frightening companies with what they can do with data. I mean, Facebook and Google and Apple and Amazon, if those companies and those big businesses and big brands, if they had nefarious intentions, good night. Zuckerberg could take over the world if he wanted to. That's the program. It's the I Love Seville show. Kathy Galvin and Lloyd Snook on the program tomorrow. Stephen Davis, the president of the Community Investment Collaborative, on the program on Monday. We have Bobby Chabra, Dr. Bobby Chabra on the program next Thursday. We are red hot on the I Love Seville network, where we have over 25 hours a week of live programming. No other network or media outlet in this town is bringing you 25 hours of live and local programming, and we're doing it on every social media platform known to mankind, on smartphones that are in our hands 24/7, 365. For Jason Grigg and Judah Wickower, my name is Jerry Miller, and this, the I Love Seville show. Have a good afternoon.